Good morning. This is the live lesson for January 31st. For our warm-up today, we want to write an absolute value inequality given the graph on the number line. So we want to note some key things here. That would be that we have open circles. So we have open circles here and here. So that means when I'm writing my inequality, I know that I'm just going to use less than or greater than. We're not including, in this case, -2 and +2. And we have values that are lower than -2 and greater than +2. So when I write my inequality, I can utilize the absolute value. So we have the absolute value of x is always greater than 2, so the distance from 0 is always greater than 2. So in this case, we can say the absolute value of x is always greater than 2. And again, we don't use the less than or greater than or equal to sign because both of these circles are open. So there's an inequality using an absolute value in order to represent this graph. A few announcements. For semester 2, we now have a pacing chart, which I hope that you like. Now this pacing chart is based on being a little bit more than halfway through the course, so you would be starting the week at 200 topics completed. Now, if you're not at 200 topics completed, then you're going to want to go through and adjust and figure out how many topics you have left to get to the total. The total is down here at 372 topics. So that's to reach 100%. Our main goal is to get every student to at least 80% complete of the ALEX topics, because then that lets us know you're ready for the next course. But of course, we want to get you as close to 100% as possible. So you might need to adjust these numbers here, but your grade is going to be based off of just this chart right here. So you are getting 10 points a week for completing 5 hours. So it's pretty straightforward. If you do 3 hours, then that's 6 points. If you do 4 hours, that's 8 points. Half hours are in between, so 3.5 hours would be 7 points, and so forth. And you're also going to be getting 10 points for completing the topic. So I have it based off of 13. So if you complete 13 topics a week, you're going to get 10 out of 10, and then it goes down from there. I have it explained in a little more detail on the course site. You will also have a place to write your due dates. They're pretty straightforward. I kept them on Sunday evening, so the first week right here is due on February 4th. And so on from there. There is going to be spring break in here, but you can also see when you're going to have discussions. We have something called discussion-based assessments. We're going to have 3 of those. And then there is a math project that we're going to start in week 10 after spring break. So your weekly ALEX assignments are going to be a little bit different. Still similar in that you are getting points weekly, but it's going to be a 20-point assignment this time. And so you're going to go under reports yourself and report what you've done each week. So it really is important that you wait till you're done working for the week. So that might be Friday, maybe it's Saturday or Sunday. So whenever you know you're done working for the week, you're going to go into Canvas and you're going to type in the answers to your 4 questions. So you're going to say what was due on the pacing chart, and what you did hours wise. So maybe you did like 3 hours and you got 15 topics. So that would be typed in with the questions, and then I would go in and grade out of your 20 points possible. Discussion-based assessments, those are going to be conversations we're going to have over the phone, and that's for me to check in and ask you about things you've been doing in Alex, a chance for you to ask me questions. It's not designed to be like an oral quiz, so I'm not going to be giving you a ton of questions, and if you get something wrong, I'm not going to be marking your points off. It's just a chance to talk about what you've been learning and make sure we're on progress to finish the semester. Notice those will be 50 points. Our first one is not due, is not overdue. This is from another group, so we will be talking about that in week 3. We'll be starting those. What I want to do is show you a little bit about absolute value equations today. This corresponds with Module 6. And so we'll be talking about it more next week in our live lesson, but I wanted to give you an introduction, and then hopefully this will help you get ready for that Module 6 assessment by the end of next week. Your goal is to solve absolute value equations. And so here's a real basic one where we are solving for v. So there's a couple options. If there's more than one solution, separate them with commas. If there's no solution, click on no solution. So the only option for this particular equation is 0. So the absolute value of the number is a distance from 0. So since the absolute value of v is 0, then the only option here would be that v is equal to 0. In this example, we have the absolute value of u equals -7, and that might put up a red flag for you because you've probably heard that the absolute value is the distance from 0. So we can't have a negative distance. A lot of you in that discussion board wrote really concise text messages explaining to your friends why that can't be true. And so in this case, the answer is that there's no solution. So there is no u value that would give us an absolute value of -7. So in this case, there is no solution. And so now we're going to go on to something that's a little bit more complex. So we have 5 times the absolute value of v is equal to 40. So we're going to do 2 steps here. First, we're going to go ahead and divide by 5, and that gives us the absolute value of v is equal to 8. Now, technically, right, that 8 distance could be left or right on the number line. So in this case, we have 2 solutions, 8 or -8. So now take a look at this one. We have -4 times the absolute value of x is equal to 0. So you might be thinking maybe there's no solution, but actually in this case, when we divide 0 by -4, we still get 0, and so there's one solution in this case, just like our very first example, the absolute value is 0. Here's one that is a little bit more complex. So we're going to go ahead and split this into 2 different problems. Okay, so the absolute value of a quantity is the distance from 0. To solve the equation in the form, we're going to use the following rules. A is either equal to b, or a is equal to -b. Or if b is a negative number, then we know that there is no solution. Okay, so remember that second example, we got a negative answer. Well, then there would be no solution. So now what we're going to do is we are going to utilize the very first method. Okay, so looking here, if b, in other words, if what we're equal to is 0 or a positive number, then we're going to go ahead and solve the 2 different equations. And so we have 6w plus 24 is equal to 0, or 6w plus 24 is equal to negative 0. Now, if this was any other number besides 0, we'd have two different equations to solve. But 0 is the only number that doesn't have a direction, so this really isn't anything different. So we're just going to solve this one. So I'm going to start by subtracting 24. And that gives me 6w is equal to negative 24. Divide by 6, and that gives me w is equal to negative 4. Okay? And then that would be our solution. And so now on this one, again, it's equal to 0. So I suppose these examples were both kind of easy, but this is 0 or greater, so we're going to solve 2x plus 14 is equal to 0, or 2x plus 14 is equal to negative 0. Again, since negative 0 is not different from 0, we don't have to worry about this one. So we get 2x plus 14 is equal to 0. Subtract 14 from both sides, and we have 2x is equal to negative 14. Lastly, I'm going to divide by 2, and x is equal to negative 7. So there's that problem. Okay, finally one that's not equal to 0. So again, 6 is positive, so I'm still going to use that first method. So I'm going to solve 3u minus 12 is equal to 6, or 3u minus 12 is equal to negative 6. So in this case, we do actually have two equations to solve. So on this side, I'm going to add 12. And I get 3u is equal to 18. Divide by 3. And u is equal to 6. Or I'm going to add 12 over here. But when I add 12 to negative 6, that gives me negative 6. Or I'm sorry, that gives me positive 6. We'll just do that. That gives me positive 6. So then when I divide by 3, I get u is equal to 2. So in this case, we do have two possible answers. So it did say separate your answers with a comma, so 6, 2. I hope this video recording helped you out. We will talk more about inequalities, or I'm sorry, absolute value equations next week in preparation of Unit 6. What you're going to want to do is do your Week 1 ALEX assignment, your 5 hours, and your topics, and complete the pacing guide survey. Within your ALEX hours, you should be doing another initial knowledge check as well. So please let me know if you have any questions, email me or message me. And then there is the course overview video. If you did not watch that already, there's the course overview video linked on the homepage as well, and that'll talk a little more in detail about these two assignments.